All right, hi everyone. We are here at Brown Mountain Overlook. So we're along 181. I've been driving up all day, and I think the plan is we're gonna drive around and see what we can see here. So what we're looking down at is Brown Mountain, but we're also looking into kind of the Wilson Creek area, which is a big Forest Service area that's kind of untouched for the most part, some dirt roads down in there. So it's a pretty cool spot. So I think the question I want to start with today, and we're gonna just drive around and take a bunch of videos at a bunch of different spots, but so this is the Appalachians, and these are hundreds of millions of years old. So why aren't they flat? Like, they've had so much time to erode that why would we still have this much relief in an area that's this old? And so that's kind of the question that I think we're going to start with today. And there's more than one answer to that. But we're sitting right here along basically the Blue Ridge Escarpment. So the Blue Ridge Escarpment is this transitional area from the Piedmont, which is way out that way, right, into the Blue Ridge, which is that way, big things that way, right? And so we're right in the middle of it. So I've been climbing on this road for a while, and we're sitting right on the highway, so you can probably hear cars behind me. Got my car with me, bike's on the back. It's Tuesday in August, and we're at the trailhead for Puxbill, so clearly there'll be parking, right? Doesn't really look like it. Nice social distancing on the left side here, and we're just gonna keep on heading because I don't necessarily want to hike with 1,000 people on Hawksbill. Maybe we'll find parking later, otherwise we'll go up to Table Rock. Worst case scenario, we'll pull the bike off the car and go wherever we want. See what it looks like. All right, so we looked at the Hawksbill trailhead and it was a nightmare. And so I kept driving and we got down here closer to Table Rock. I'm sitting right on the edge of the Linville Gorge wilderness there. And there were more parking spots down here. And so I decided we'd just go ahead and go for it. It's really nice up on Hawksbill, and it's really nice here. So why are we doing this one? Why are there more parking spaces here? Well, it's because you can drive up there. You can drive within 100 feet of the summit. So, but we're gonna do it the hard way. We're gonna head up the trail here. So changed my shirt, lost the face mask. We're kind of a little lonelier here. A couple cars driving by. And we'll take some videos as we go. And we'll get up there and take a look into Linville Gorge. Let's do it. All right, so we've been hiking a few minutes here. It's nice and flat, but we gotta go to the top of a mountain. So good news when the thing finally starts to kick uphill a little bit here. So we'll keep moving. Give you some shots when we get to the top. All right, we're getting somewhere. It's pretty much straight up from here. Been coming that way. Beautiful little trail here. Vegetation's changing a little, which means we're getting higher. It's about 72 degrees outside, about 10 or 15 degrees cooler than the Piedmont, but we're on the Blue Ridge and it's humid, and so I'm still sweating. Should be going up there, I think. You can see a little blue sky at the top of it, so maybe it's not too much further. But the trail's getting pretty cool, so I figured I'd flip on, talk to you guys for a minute, and then maybe we'll take a little video of some trail. So let's walk and just see what we see. Some cool rocks on the trail. I'll stop talking. All right, so we're like a mile into this hike. The breeze is getting better, and along with the breeze come the views. The view's getting better. Got to kind of look through the trees there. I think maybe you can see Linville Falls. There's a waterfall over there. It seems too low to me to be Linville Falls into the valley, but I can't tell. I'm not that spatially oriented here, so who knows. I do feel obligated to talk about the rocks, right? So they're underneath us. And so I don't have a geologic map with me, and so I'm just going to interpret them on the fly. And if this is wrong, then we'll just cut it out later. So if you're seeing this, it's probably right. They look like metamorphic rocks. I mean, you can really tell there's what's called a foliation to them, right? So there's this layering. That layering, a lot of these are old sedimentary rocks that have been reworked by metamorphism, so basically deep burial. At some point, these were way underground underneath the ancestral Appalachian Mountains. So keep in mind, the Appalachians used to be basically the size of the Himalayas. And so this stuff that's at the surface now wasn't at the top of the Himalayas. All that stuff's eroded away. It's the stuff that was kilometers and kilometers down. And so all that pressure and temperature from being underground layered this stuff, foliated it real nice and tight. It's hard to tell the mineralogy because it's all got moss and dirt and manganese all over it. But definitely behind me, if I walk back a foot or two, about 5 meters back, we see a whole bunch of quartz. So this white stuff, right? This is all quartz. Quartz, most common mineral around. You're going to see it basically anywhere you go in the world. The Piedmont is also filled with quartz, so big chunks of quartz here kind of interbedded into this stuff. The far side of the gorge, we'll look at that stuff later. That stuff's all almost 100% quartz. So that side, those cliffs over there are quartzite, which is one of the harder rocks around, and so it's what holds up that side of the valley and lets the gorge be all deep and cool and everything. So quartzite on the far side, there's a change in rock that runs down the bottom, and then some other metamorphic rocks on this side that are holding up this side. We're almost there. Let's go to the top. So I think we're coming up to a junction here. It looks like the trail gets a little wider. So we're coming from back that way. Looks like, I'm guessing that is down to the upper parking lot, which is a little depressing because it means, 100 yards that way. But we knew what we got ourselves into here. So, and then up, I'm guessing, is up. Why is there a parking lot almost at the top? I'm going to keep walking while I talk. Last of the Mohicans was filmed mostly in North Carolina, even though it's supposed to take place in the Hudson River Valley. And they needed to get a whole bunch of camera equipment up here. And the end of the road is really steep. And so even though the lower roads are all gravel, the production company, paved the upper steep part. And then through time, the Forest Service has kept that and turned it into a parking lot. So you can drive almost all the way to the top, and then you just have to climb this little bit. We're skipping all that though. So, but the trail's gotten wider, clearly more foot traffic in here. We'll be at the top in a minute here. Catch you then. All right, I think we're getting somewhere cool. Kind of in this little rhododendron tunnel up here. Classic stuff, but it's looking a little more open around the corner underneath this little ledge. So let's take a look here. Not sure if this is the top, but I think we're getting somewhere. Oh, it's not too bad. Woo! Yeah. Yeah, so that's Linville Falls down there. Hawksbill to the right, that's what we were gonna do. Way in the distance you can see Sugar Top, which is the ugliest hotel in all of North Carolina. So ugly that they changed the law, so you can't build hotels that look like that anymore. That jagged ridge that way, that's Grandfather Mountain. Linville Falls, somewhere over there is Wiseman's View. I think we might go there later today. Hard to see from here. Not too shabby. All right, y'all, we made it to the top. We gotta start talking about geology here at some point again. So I'm looking out towards what's basically the east, maybe the southeast. And what we're looking at is the Piedmont. We're looking back into the Piedmont. And off in the distance this way, you can see some monadnocks. It's a little hazy today, so we're not seeing a ton of it. down there. That's Lake James down that way. So that's also kind of towards the Piedmont. You get too far that way and you start seeing the mountains that are south of Asheville. But we're really looking down the escarpment here. Like, we're on the escarpment. There's a 2,000-foot drop to my left. Pretty much straight down. And so this is the Blue Ridge Escarpment. If we look up towards Virginia, you can't see a really clear view of the escarpment, but you can definitely see parts that are in the Piedmont. You can definitely see the way the mountains start to rise so quickly. It's not quite as obvious from this angle, but it's a pretty good view overall. A little less haze, we'd be able to see all over the place. We could probably see Charlotte if we had the right angle. All right, let's do this. So I'm still sitting on the top of the mountain here. There's some hikers around. Trying to find a little peace and quiet so you guys can hear me all right. It's a little windy. Trying to avoid being on influencers in the wild Instagram account. So I'm trying to find a little peace here, but we'll see. Kind of hunkered down. So let's go back to the very first question we asked today. So this mountain range is old, hundreds of millions of years old. We've got a ton of relief. I mean, look down in, you can see these bands on the other side. Those are sheer cliff bands. That's partially because that bedrock is so hard. That's the quartzite we see on the other side. Right, but there's got to be something else going on here. And what's going on here is that, well, the whole mountain range is old. This river is probably quite young. Not the river, but the canyon itself is probably quite young. Instead of being hundreds of millions, we're probably talking about 2 million years old, 1 million year old, younger than that maybe. And we're going to read the paper. It's a paper I just published recently. If you're not in the class, Johnson, 2020, it's in geomorphology. And the idea is basically that way up there in the headwaters, the water used to drain from the right towards the left and stay on top of the escarpment, not cross over the escarpment and come off the edge. But the Linville River had a fair amount of energy. It's coming off the escarpment, so it's got this energy, and so it's eroding back and back, and it's eroding headwardly. And as it's eroding headwardly, it goes back, and it bumps into the headwaters of the North Toe River, and it steals all that water that used to flow that way into the Tennessee River. The Toe River flows into the Nolichucky goes into the Tennessee goes into the Mississippi. When we read the paper, that'll all make more sense. The geometry here is not that clear. But it all used to go right to left up there where it's flatter. And this worked its way back up, eating further and further and further upward. And when it finally stole all that water from the headwaters of the North Toe River, it pulled it over the escarpment. And with all that extra water, it tripled, or more than tripled, the size of the drainage area. And in doing so, cut this huge canyon. And so it's probably done so relatively rapidly. Anyway, all that's going to be more obvious when we look at a map, but here's the spot, and it's beautiful. No doubt about it. All right, we are in what's called Camp Creek, way up on top. Right behind me is the Blue Ridge Parkway. That way, my car's over there, bike's back on the car. On the other side is another highway, so there's a lot of car noises going on right now. We've driven further to the north, up on top of the escarpment, and what we find here, I'm gonna wait for this car to pass. What we find here is what's called Camp Creek. So there's a little creek down in here, and it is really flat. So I'm gonna kind of scroll you around. Way up on top of the parkway here, and we have this very low angle meandering creek somewhere over there in the bushes and the alders. And this creek is flowing that way. And if you follow this creek, it would project across. So right now, today, it flows down and into the Linville River. But historically, this would have projected all the way across the valley over towards Brushy Creek. And so this low relief upper part of this is kind of this fragment that's left over from this earlier time when this was part of the North Toe River. So this used to flow into the North Toe River, and today it flows into Linville. So from here, we're actually going to go down a little bit because it has to go down into that upper Linville River Valley. We're going to go down and look at what that waterfall looks like, or what that nick point looks like, where this drops off and starts to go down into the Linville Valley. All right, we're still along the Blue Ridge Parkway. We are here at the Camp Creek Overlook. And the Camp Creek Overlook is a terrible overlook. It is, look, there's nobody here. There's nobody here because there's not much of an overlook. Most of the overlooks along the parkway have like these big scenic views. However, I think if we look, there's a little trail here, a little secret trail. And I've never been down here before, but I can hear a waterfall. So here we are down at Camp Creek. I can't quite get to the waterfall. I can hear some rapids up here. Maybe we can look around the corner more than I can. But it's definitely not the creek we saw up there in that grassy field that's barely meandering and barely moving down. And this is kind of the start of what maybe we'll call the Camp Creek Gorge, right? So keeping in mind the geometry of the modern system, right? There's this flat upper Camp Creek, and then the Linville River's down here. And so that Camp Creek, to accommodate that, needs to start going down some rapids. And I think this is kind of the beginning of that. And it's so thick in here. I mean, it is crazy with rhododendrons behind me that I'm not totally sure we're ever gonna fully get in here. I'm sure if I spent some time, if I had some waders and I jumped in the creek, I could probably do it. But I'm gonna stay out of the creek, and we'll just admit that we know from looking at the profiles, and we can look at that paper, that this is gonna go downhill a little bit. All right, so we are in the upper part of the Linville River. So let's drive along the Blue Ridge Parkway. I came down to the Linville Falls Visitor Center, and I'm hiding under the bridge so other people can't see me, although I can still see me. And I'm looking at the flat part of the upper Linville River. So pretty mellow in here. If you go upstream, probably a half a mile, that's where Camp Creek came in. But now we're in the Linville River, and there's this kind of bridge over behind you. It's about a half a mile that way until Linville Falls starts. And Linville Falls is important, right, because it separates this kind of calm upper part of the valley from the chaotic Linville Gorge that's down below us. So we're gonna go to the Plunge Pool Overlook. I've never done that trail here. There's a handful of trails. I think this is the only one I've never done. It's rated difficult, so hopefully we'll make it out of there. It's a half a mile. I think we'll survive. So I'm gonna head down there. I got the mask back on again because it's a lot busier here at the visitor center. Parts of it are actually open that weren't open even a few weeks ago. So I'm gonna head that way. Let's head down there and see. All right, so the plunge pool was a bit of a dud, and it was really small, and there were other people there, and I didn't want to pull out a camera and start talking. So it's the end of the day. I skipped lunch earlier. I ran into some guys on the trail that were too interesting not to talk to. Talked to them while we hiked. Talked to them in the parking lot. Anyway, forgot to eat lunch. So it's 6 o'clock, but we're here. We're gonna go down to Linville Falls. From the other side, there should be some better spots to talk a little bit. So, and then I better go get some takeout from somewhere because I'm hungry. All right, off we go. All right, I'm at the upper falls here. It's a little chaotic. You can see them behind me. They look pretty nice. There's also people who have climbed over the fence and are in the water. And once I show you the lower falls, you'll probably realize that's not a great idea. So some pretty fascinating behavior I'm observing here. But I do want to talk a little bit about this spot in particular, because above us, not even a half mile, is that real smooth section of water we were looking at. And the videos from the bridge and under the bridge, all that stuff is not that far here. And yet, all of a sudden, we start getting a pretty decent size little drop off here. So this is the separation. Below us is the gorge, above us is just the upper Linville Valley. And so we, you know, really on this dividing point. Why are Linville Falls here today? Linville Falls is basically here today because there's a fault behind me and there's a change in bedrock. But that won't stay that way forever. Through time, this nick point will continue to erode further and further upstream. And as it does continue to erode further and further upstream, the upper Linville Valley will deepen and maybe we'll get other captures going on. But for the time being, the upper Linville Valley has captured what it can, but it can't go deeper until this nick point moves through. And it's already moved through the lower gorge, partially probably creating the gorge. This nick point may have started all the way out at the Piedmont and moved up this far. I'm gonna take some videos, we'll look around here a little bit, and then I'm gonna go get some dinner. That'll be the end of this. I will take videos of any sketchy behavior I see as well.